This is a private club. This can't be a park district.
No, this is private club. Yeah.
No, the Golf U.S. Open's been played 3 times at this at this club,
Yeah.
so it's about as exclusive as you can be. Welcome to Shankcast episode number 27. Welcome back, everybody. Matt, Mark.
Thank you.
Good to see you
Good
guys.
to have you back again. So today we're going to be discussing the question: is tennis a sport of status or privilege? Yes or no? Big question.
Very
Big
tough.
question. And let's give a little bit of background here.
Sure.
I started playing tennis when I was 10. My first tennis job was when I was probably 15, 16. A standard like front desk, rolling the courts, garbage and water, and like some little kid classes.
Oh, what state again?
Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Didn't know
yeah.
you were
I
from
grew
the
up in
area.
Milwaukee. Yeah.
Got it.
So I've worked in tennis clubs, like commercial, private. The only type of club I really haven't worked in is like resorts or academy. Like I haven't been in those kind of settings. It's more so been like private country club or a commercial, a public facility. So those have been the only jobs I've had my entire life, just for context. Matt, how about you?
So I started about the same time. I think I was about 12. Before that, just because it'll play into some of my thoughts on this topic. So before that, I grew up basically as a wrestler and a baseball player. Played basketball for a little bit, and then the height just didn't work out, unfortunately. But yeah, started at 12, and then I started. My first tennis job was actually the Ferris camps.
Nice.
At 18 years old, and then same as you, I've been athletic club or private club my entire career. I did some stops outside of tennis, but I never worked at a resort or at an academy as well.
Yeah, those are probably two very different contrasting styles of tennis as a professional. You got the academy / resort, and then the regular day in day out type of job. So for me, I actually grew up in a lower middle class in northwest suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. So we're all Midwest here, I'm assuming, where we grew up, which is good context. And
It is good context.
yeah. So my parents used tennis as kind of like a way to keep me, like, not necessarily off the streets, but to keep me busy, to keep me in good physical shape, and have, to keep myself under adult supervision while my parents worked 2 jobs each, because it's a tough life, and I love them for everything that they've sacrificed. And I started at around, what's 3rd grade now? Is that 8 or 9?
I'm terrible.
That's
terrible.
Well, my son's 7. He's in first. 8. So we'll call it 9, 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
9, 10. So that's when I
Thank you,
started.
No problem.
And in something that they have in Illinois and not Wisconsin is Park District indoor tennis clubs, which is fantastic.
Wow, nice.
So it's
I didn't know that was a thing.
It
Oh,
is
it's,
a
it's,
thing.
it's
Midwest.
huge in Illinois.
It's a huge
Yeah.
thing.
Wow.
So there's a huge pay discrepancy between Park District tennis lessons and literally all privatized tennis lessons, especially indoor. It's a massive difference. I think the cost is literally
So
twice
Park
as much.
District coaches are paid by the city or by the state?
Municipality. I think
Yeah.
it's not state. I
Yeah.
think
So
it's city.
no, it could be the municipality.
Really?
So just
Okay.
a quick detour to give you some context. My first job out of college, I worked at South Barrington Club, and they were a park district.
Oh, that's a nice one. though.
Yeah, and so they were run a little different because it was South Barrington. And then later on in my career, I interviewed for a platform tennis through a park district, and like they had pretty sweet. Like I would get a pension through them. Ended up not working out, but yeah. So it was just different.
Yeah.
So like one I would have got a pension, the other one would have been a 401k. So it all just depends. But there's quite a few park districts in Illinois.
And you don't see that in Milwaukee.
How many other states is that even a thing? I've literally never heard of that.
Well, I never heard of it until
That's awesome.
I was in
It's an
Illinois.
awesome opportunity
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, so and the lessons are actually pretty good. It's not like it's a second tier. It's pretty good. And I think a private lesson for a park district, a 1-hour private lesson for just one kid, I think is about $40 or $45 an hour back in 2000, let's say 2004.
So not cheap, but
Yeah.
reasonable.
It's reasonable. And
Yeah.
now, I mean,
It's probably all leveled out with everything else. I bet
Exactly.
you. Yeah, it's between probably $65 to $80, even at a park district.
yeah.
If it's an indoor facility.
So yeah, that's all of our background. So I mean, this is a pretty complicated topic. So, I mean,
For sure. Yeah, and a little bit about my entry into the sport. I was also lower middle class. I grew up on, I don't know how well you know Milwaukee area, but on 13th and Forest Home. My parents' first house cost $18,000.
Oh.
And they slowly fixed it up. So, and then my dad supported us on a graphic designer salary, 4 kids, homeschooled, stay-at-home mom. So I wasn't going off to like academy to train. So I had a paper route, and so that was like kind of my background. Was kind of self-supporting a lot early on for lessons for club membership.
Yeah.
Here at this facility,
Really?
is where I started taking like real lessons. I started off in a high school summer rec program
Through the school, kind of like a junior
Nathan
high
Hale
toward
High
feed-in.
School. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I've seen I very much kind of bootstrap, kind of is my background. And I'll kick off the real topic here. And so for that reason, when I was pretty naive going into the industry, I basically assumed that the more exclusive, the more fancy the club was, the better of a job, it was it was going to be how the highest, the higher the initiation fee, the higher the membership, the more expensive the lessons cost, the sweeter of a job it was going to be.
It's kind of a feed-in from our last podcast about private lessons being mostly a ripoff.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's connected for sure.
Yeah.
So I was so I've seen both ends of the spectrum. The last club I had a job at, the initiation fee to get on the wait list to eventually be a member was $120,000, and unless you paid more to certain people, it took 2, 3, 4 years before you got to your point in the queue where it's oh, now you can be a member and pay the normal monthly food and beverage and golf. You had to pay a certain minimum for everything.
This is a private club. This can't be a park district.
No, this is
no.
private club. Yeah.
No, the Golf US Open's been played 3 times at this at this club,
Yeah.
so it's about as exclusive as you can be. And so I very much saw the other end of things too, where to be honest, it made me uncomfortable. Coming from my background, it was exclusionary, and not on purpose. Just to be really, really specific, it wasn't culturally exclusionary, where it was certain cultural groups, or it was where they were purposefully shunned. It was just if you didn't have a certain bank account, you just weren't showing up. You just weren't getting in if you didn't have a ungodly amount of money. So there's that end of the tennis, but then it makes me feel great to hear your story about the rec, or not rec, but
Park district.
municipal, run club.
Yep.
And tennis, I think, is very much a story of both ends of the spectrum. On one hand, you can go to Target and buy a $19.95 racket and a can of balls for $3, and go to a public, park. I think in most parts of America, there's public, tennis courts, and go play all the tennis you want to play and not have to pay anything as long as the weather's not absolutely horrible. But way over on the other end of the spectrum is the kind of experience what I'm talking about, where it is very exclusionary, and then there's a whole mess of stuff in between. So I feel I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Anybody who says that black and white, it is a status, sport, sure, there's that side of the sport, no question. But I also think on the low end, it's very open to anybody as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I have kind of a tale similar to you guys. So grew up in the UP of Michigan. We actually had a bubble that had 4 indoor tennis courts. But
you don't see that in Wisconsin too much.
Yeah.
Actually. It's a Chicago thing.
Wisconsin, yeah.
But
out in Maryland, there's quite a few.
Yeah, but we didn't have a tennis pro in Menominee, Michigan. Okay, that there's no pro that could make a living. So I think
It's lucky you had a bubble.
Yeah. So I grew up learning how to play on a wall, and then we had a coach for about a year, and I took a group's lessons, and then he ended up moving to Green Bay where he could actually make a living. So I basically kind of same thing, self-taught, played some tournaments, and then played high school and that. And But same end of the spectrum. I said on the last our intro, I grew up pretty much in my teaching career through the private club system. So I know that's the world I know. And what I think is really interesting is there's a lot of kids that take tennis because it's something to do for them. And, money's not an issue, and that, more power to that. And where it's kind of interesting where I am in Illinois, either the Western Burbs or even on the North Shore, is I know a lot of kids that don't go to the bigger high schools. It's just not their jam, and they go to these smaller schools and they can play tennis on the high school teams, even though the high school teams aren't very good. They wouldn't be able, and that's not the sole reason they're going to that school, but they get to take lessons and all that good stuff. But I look at it when this topic came up. I think it's really interesting just because I think, and I know we'll stay on tennis, but for the most part, I just think sports in general has gotten very, very status quo and tough because my nephew plays hockey. That's an extremely expensive sport.
Nothing compared to tennis, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, in a sense, it's gotten out of the control. So to give you some background, we're about the same age. I'm about to turn 40. So we didn't have, travel sports, right? We had, a one baseball travel team. And
the soccer mom,
but,
phenomenon
you pretty much
really
played
hit,
local. And in tennis, I didn't travel a ton. But now everything's travel. And
every kid is so programmed to the hilt now.
Everything. So I remember talking to this mom, and her son was a decent soccer player. I don't even know if he would have made varsity when he got to high school.
But
he was playing travel soccer. But again, it's something he enjoyed. Obviously they could afford it and all that good stuff. So I think kind of bringing it back over to tennis, I think it really just...
So are you saying a kid coming from a family without means couldn't experience that same travel?
No, and I don't think it matters where you are anymore, and you get to that certain point. I think it's just getting really difficult to give that experience to kids,
even if you're talented.
Yeah, and the tough thing on the tennis side is if kind of going back to what I said, baseball was the first sport I started, right? You were placed on a team and it was go.
Go play.
Go
fun.
play.
Yeah.
You can't do that in tennis.
Yeah.
So you have, you can, but there's nothing for really kids to go do like that.
There's not the Little League kind of structure behind it where it's you just show up and you get funneled into the system.
Right. So, I mean, if you think about kids in tennis, when is the first time they actually play a match? It takes usually some time. In baseball, it's okay that you can barely hit and throw a ball, but in tennis, I get it. You got to be able to get a serve in and all that good stuff. But I think that
takes investment.
Yeah, and that's where it's hard is just to get to a point where you can actually play is not easy.
What people don't understand too is tennis is an incredibly difficult sport, especially for a developing child, both physically and mentally. Also, from the example you gave us with baseball, and everybody under the sun that lives in America did baseball at least 1 or 2 years, right? Because America, hell yeah. But it's one of those things too where tennis, you're all alone in singles. I'm assuming singles, right? There is no travel team.
No.
You travel with your mom and your dad.
And if you lose, you go home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Assuming your dad mom and dad can afford it.
Right.
You could have the means to get
And
there.
they have time off of work to
Exactly.
drive your ass to the tournament.
Well, that's an opportunity cost. And that is something that people don't realize. You need to take PTO
Right.
and go to this tennis tournament with your kid that might lose first round to the number 1 seed.
Yep.
And then he's crying on the way home because he couldn't get a single game.
Yeah.
So what I'm kind of hearing between the two of you guys is kind of the separation between just being active and participating in the sport versus okay, I'd like to pursue this and actually try to develop myself, and I think that's a really important distinguishing factor. If we're talking about developing yourself as a player, now we're on a whole different pay grade of financial requirement. But if you just want to be involved, just play the game, I think the barrier to entry is super low, which is fantastic. I feel good about tennis for that reason. But when it comes to development, now we're on a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
I would say though that is outdoor tennis in Wisconsin. That is 8-9 months out of the year. It gets a little bit pricey.
That's generous. Oh, 9 months outdoors?
Yeah,
in
9 months
Wisconsin?
outdoors. What?
That's generous.
April through early October.
May, June, July,
I was going to say,
October. That's
yeah.
seven. That's
Yeah.
7 months.
I might
Okay.
even scratch. Well, depending on
How am I-
October.
How am I software engineer? I should probably. But that barrier to entry is low, assuming it is those 6 to 7 months of outdoor tennis in Midwestern America. Obviously, if you're living in California, if you're living in a warm weather state, then
It's more accessible.
a
Yeah.
lot more accessible.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I think the other thing and I guess I'll go because you could go down different pathways, and I'm going to go down the adult pathway right
Yep.
now. Is if you think about it, if you belong to an athletic club, right, you're probably getting charged $100 a month for your membership fee.
Is that just gym or is that tennis?
We'll say
amenities?
Dues.
like dues. Yeah, we'll say kind of combined.
All right.
And then if you're doing a weekly drill, you're probably getting hit $30 for an hour and a half, maybe a little more.
Yep.
And if you do private lessons, and then you got court time on top of that.
Yep.
So let's say all in, $30. Let's say call
couple hundred
$500
months.
Okay.
a month.
Including equipment, restrings, shoes.
I think for a lot of recreation players, that's
Okay.
a one-time.
Once a year. Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
they buy in one racket. They get their racket strung twice a year. They buy one pair of shoes until they get a hole in them.
Okay.
So it gets there, but I look at what do adults really do activity-wise when they get older that costs money. Like if you played volleyball, you're not playing volleyball anymore.
Drink beer.
Yeah, drink beer.
Golf.
But golf, that's the big one. Like my
Yeah.
buddies play golf. They're looking at
See,
60.
drink beer.
Drink beer. Yeah, bowling. But as we get older as adults, like physical activity, a lot of people run. That's free.
Yeah.
So I think that's hard to also put in that class of as we get older, our options are limited of
Yeah.
what we're doing. So, and I would probably venture to say, I don't know any stats on this, but how many households actually have a gym membership? You're paying almost like there's some dirt cheap gyms. I
Yeah.
get that, but you can just convert that over and then. So I don't think the cost is too ridiculous if you're belonging to a club that has a gym, that has tennis included, because you have your one-stop shop
Yeah.
right there.
And this moment brought to you by Planet Fitness, where if you grunt too loud, you get asked to leave.
Good thing tennis clubs are. Although you kind of had that experience, where
Where?
you got too loud and you almost got asked to leave at regionals.
Yeah. Got to fight an altercation with an umpire. And you know what? I manned up. I apologize in the video, and I was wrong. A little heated. But that wasn't during back squat or bench press.
But I think that's kind of the
But
angle too.
in fairness, like we're talking $5,000-$6,000 a year. Like, what's the median, income, like household
it's
income?
a lot lower than I think we really think it is.
Yeah.
So.
What is it, 50? Like
For Wisconsin?
between 50, 60.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
I'm thinking
I
Wisconsin.
probably-
I mean, we're talking 10% of
Yeah.
your take home. Not take home pay. Your gross.
You're gross.
Which, I mean, that's a significant
Okay, so
investment.
Median household income of Milwaukee, and I don't know if this is
well,
a 1 or 2.
You got to do Wisconsin.
Wisconsin?
Yeah, Milwaukee's
Okay.
going to be
Yeah.
a little bit lower. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
So the median household income for Wisconsin
Yeah,
is
64.
$64,000.
That's a little higher than it. So still, we're getting close to 10%
Yeah.
of gross pay, which is you better really love tennis.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna drop that kind of money, and you have an average income. If you have below average income, that's
It's out of the question.
Yeah, for sure. You're doing local like park
Yep.
stuff. Which fantastic that it's available.
Yeah.
In most, as far as I'm aware, most parts of America.
But it's not the same, as you said. It's not the same, let's say, mindset of the
As
individual.
pursuing,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So, so you did work at a whole range of clubs, anywhere from grassroots tennis at a park to that type of exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I used to work at a country club too, and not for long, but I just couldn't.
Around
do it.
here or in
Yeah.
Chicago?
Here. I can't say which one, obviously, because I don't think too highly of them. But it's a different style of coaching that I just can't do.
And it's
more
a
like
different
babysitting.
attitude. Like
yeah.
it's a different attitude by the membership. Like when you go to that type of club, it is a status purchase. Like you're going there to spend time around other people that have also passed the test to be able to be like the financial
Yeah.
test, to be able to walk through those doors. People want to network. They want to meet other people in their class. And so there is a feeling, even if it's not like a conscious, purposeful, like excluding, outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why rich people go to clubs like that.
But that, again, given all of our backgrounds, I would never spend 6 figures on any type of membership like that. That just baffles
Well,
me.
it's because you don't make 7 figures a year.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
exactly.
Got to get more subs.
But no, the perspective of somebody who drops that kind of money on a club membership is they're writing a lot of it off because they're taking work clients and like potential, like they're booking like whatever they do for work. They're in their minds coming out ahead on that investment because they're using it for networking and for building relationships.
But at that point, though, what does that have to do with the children playing tennis?
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
Okay, just
and so that comes full circle to our last topic, where it's like quality of lessons.
Yep.
Now that feeds into the coach in that environment gets used to babysitting, kids who are just getting dropped off by 7-figure mom and dad because they want them out of their hair so they can go play golf and drink at the bar at the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like really judgmental for anybody out there who makes 7 figures and is a member at a club like that. Like you can spend your money on whatever you want. It's totally fine. But it just fosters a certain kind of attitude, and I think that's what a lot of people from outside of tennis and in the lower financial range of tennis sees that kind of like experiential type of tennis and feels a little gross about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, though, just in my experience, the last couple clubs.
Is anything that I just said unfair?
I would say my past experience, the last couple, yes. Just for this reason is the age range that is now joining these clubs are our age and a little older. And the mentality is a lot different.
Is it? Okay.
And here's the reason why.
I've been out for a decade.
Yeah, but here's the reason why. This is where I kind of joked with my last club I was at. We were trying to talk about participation with something on the weekends, and they like these newer members, the guys weren't coming out. And I was like, and I told the guy, I said, it's different. I said, the days where the guy can go golfing or play tennis for 6 hours on Saturday, Sunday.
And the wife goes to the tennis drills.
Yeah, I'm like,
plays
that
on the
ain't
team.
happening. I
No?
said,
What's happening now?
It's more of like the wife might go out. The guy has to watch the kids now. So it's a little more.
How about that?
Yeah, and so the reason I would say,
21st century, ladies.
yeah, just on that is like, and again, the kids, but the kids that are taking tennis, whether to me it's an athletic club or a country club, a lot of it, 80% of the time, it's activity and babysitting.
Yeah.
Like most of those kids, they don't know what they want to be good at yet, and their mom or dad signed them up. But I think the difference is in my last couple of experiences, I didn't feel as much as babysitting because it was more of the parents. If I went back to them and I said, Ian, your son is being a pain in the ass, they would lay the hammer down. So
in a lot of private clubs, you can't.
You can't do that.
And I'm not to say like, and I think there is a big difference though too between Midwest clubs and out East clubs.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've never. Well, when I was younger, I spent time at higher end Midwest clubs, but I was like the low man on the totem pole.
In Midwest clubs, I would say is a little more chill. I mean, it's still it's private club.
It's not a competition like it is out on the coast for their kids to like be number one at everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I would say it's a little more, a little less babysitting like and things
good.
like that. Yeah.
Well, the club that I was working at, and this is the very first country club that I did, and I was 25. I was a sales guy, and I woke up at like 4 a.m., got done with the work at noon, and then taught tennis to this country club from noon to around 5 o'clock because I was grinding. I needed to pay the rent. I needed to, get my name out there. But it's that type of club where you had to wear all white, and if the kids were misbehaving, you actually couldn't do any negative consequences. Because if a puppy or a cat or any type of something that's like not fully developed and doesn't understand, consequences as an adult, you give them negative
Are we
consequences.
talking about
negative
4-year-olds or are we talking about 10-year-olds here?
10-year-olds. Obviously 4-year-olds. But we literally couldn't make them run. The director who I worked right under was like, hey, you can't make them run. I'm like, well, they're misbehaving.
I
not
would-
that
I
type
would
of
quit
club.
that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I eventually
Because you're just
quit.
behind the 8 ball the whole time.
Exactly.
Your hands are tied.
And part of it, like, that's tough, though, too, because I think again, being in the scene for so long and hearing some of these stories, it makes me cringe in the sense of like, grow a pair and talk to the membership.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, because
It comes down to the culture of the
exactly,
club,
and I would say of the clubs,
if the board, if the director are all have that mentality, then everybody else is just going to fall.
In the clubs I've been a part of, even my wife has, I've never been in that like toxic of an environment where it was like, no, the member is always right.
Correct.
Always.
Yeah, and it's like, no. If the member is out of line, if the kids are out of line, like they're gonna address that. So I mean, I was fortunate. I never had I had tough members and I had tough situations and all that good stuff, but never anything like
Same
that.
for me. Yeah, I never had that extreme. There were individual members. Every club is going to have.
Correct.
There were some very good people at that club. They were fantastic.
Awesome.
But it was, again, it was definitely more of like the culture, which stems down just like any company with a CEO. It stems down and trickles down to the individual members that you kind of see on a day-to-day basis. Don't get me wrong, there were some fantastic members there that I love, and I still see them from week to week. But that kind of just stuck in my head because, given our backgrounds, like, I was acting like a fool. I'm going to get punished.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Well, and I think kind of coming back full circle, I think one of the tough things is whether I don't think so much maybe on the kids side they would recognize it, but maybe as a parent or an adult recreation player, I think it, like, to kind of come back, the status symbol of tennis, I think it's just more of how people are deciding to spend their money. And it's like, man, I wish I had more money to play more and take lessons, but I don't have that. And when I hear Ian, he gets to take 3 private lessons a week, and he's getting his racket restrung. I think that's where maybe
and Ian doesn't even really try that hard.
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's going for the
my
social
story
aspect.
as a junior. Like, I was busting my ass. I was like paying for my own lessons, and all these like Richie Rich, kids were totally taking it for granted.
Right.
And it bothered me so
But
much.
when you did play
junior.
those kids and you beat them, how good did you feel?
Oh yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
But it almost wasn't even that satisfying because they would
didn't
would
care.
tank. Right. They would
They
tank.
didn't care.
Yeah.
Like,
it
whatever.
would make me hate them like even more.
Hey.
And then they get picked up by their parents in their Mercedes, and I'd like wait for the bus. Where we are, individually right now, if you wanted to, I'm sure you can make a really good living on the court. As a tennis coach, it's been my career, and so I feel like that's at least it's an option. Like it wasn't necessarily easy for either of us to get to where we are, playing level or income, from coaching. At least there's enough accessibility that you can get your foot in the door.
Correct.
And other sports, like, there are other sports I think it's harder to get that first foot in the door.
Yeah, but other
But
sports.
tennis is, I agree that tennis it's on the list of like the more difficult ones.
And ironically enough, when I spent less money on the sport, that's actually when I got better. When I only took lessons, maybe private lessons, like once every 2 months, and I just watched YouTube videos, and that actually you popped up back in the day.
Wow.
On Federer forehand slow
I've been
motion.
making videos a long time.
No, I'm serious. I'm like, I want to hit a one-handed backhand. I took no coach. I had a two-handed backhand that was utter crap.
That's something I wanted to bring up. I think the internet has made the game more accessible than it used to be.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the...
I would definitely say, my personal opinion, no. Just because, again, I grew up in the UP, and I don't even know if people knew what tennis was in the UP, so I got to play, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it from maybe a little different angle than you do about the high competition kind of thing, where I look at if I was big in today's youth sports, if I was a really good baseball player, I don't know if rewind to when I was a kid, if my parents could have afforded for me to be traveling baseball every single week.
Yeah.
So the means didn't really matter whether it was tennis, baseball, staying in a hotel. Like, we had a certain means that I got to play sports in, and that was it. Like, we couldn't exceed that. So to me, it wasn't Matt plays tennis. Like, no, it was that would cost as much as me getting a new mitt, new baseball bat, whatever. As an adult, I kind of just go back to the same thing is, this is where it gets a little tricky. You brought up a great point. If you're living somewhere warm, you have more accessibility to play year-round at public courts where maybe you can grab a couple friends and play. And that's, again, what is your goal behind everything? When you're in the Midwest and, out east, you have to play indoor tennis if you want to play year-round. again, my pushback to that though too is, as adults, you're only doing typically so many things recreationally anymore. So to me, it's no different if you're a gamer and you're spending $60 every 2 weeks on games. Like, it's just, how do you want to use your discretionary income? And if tennis is like at the top of the list, you're going to figure out ways to put that on the top of the list. But I think it's different. Everything like outside looking in, right, is when I grew up, we didn't really have a ton of hockey. But then when I got, I don't know if it was out of college, and a lot of the kids I taught, they played hockey, and then the parents would tell me how expensive ice time is, and I was like, wow, like, hockey's really expensive. So, but
they have those conversations too. I thought it was honestly just tennis.
No, I mean, it's everything. Well,
Really?
it's everything now.
How expensive it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
if you're on any kind of travel sport.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's I have
Soccer's like that.
Yeah, I have
like,
good friends that, I mean, they're not rolling in money every night, and their kids are playing hockey. It's just, I mean, if their kids still do it, they're going to figure out a way, and that could maybe be the only sport they play. And it's tough because it's going family to family. But I never thought, like, there's that person, they play tennis, they have all this money. I never, or their status is higher, and I never had that inclination.
So your answer is no.
No.
I have mixed feelings in terms of answering that question. As a kid, I definitely felt, in my experience, like I felt like I have not in a haves kind of sport.
But let's bring that back, though, since you said no, and obviously I respectfully disagree. That's awesome. But we're talking about the spectrum that we've seen in tennis. Are there spectrums in baseball?
I'm sure, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, like think about basketball, for example. Like, what does basketball cost? $15. You can go to the park, play basketball all day. Kind of like tennis. But if you want to pursue it at a competitive level, regionally or nationally, I can only imagine it becomes super expensive as well.
So, like, when one of my buddies, his brother, played college baseball, and I think he does it on the side. He coaches hitting. Well, his hitting lessons are, I think, $30 for a half hour. That's $1 a minute.
Similar to a private lesson.
Similar. So, I mean, that's and again, how many kids are taking hitting lessons? I have no idea in baseball.
That's a good question.
But
yeah.
if you want to, again, if you
want to pursue it,
you want to pursue it,
Yeah.
like, and that's the thing. Like, the difference is, I think personally, and this is a whole nother topic. Parents have just we're pushing things to do more privatized now as well in terms of sports. Like, kids aren't playing as many sports anymore, and they're now like pursuing it. I don't know if I would say more seriously, but and again, it's tough for me. Like, I didn't grow up with tennis lessons. Like, so I come from a different angle of we didn't have it available for me. So to even spend that money, but kind of going back, like, of all the years I played other sports, I never had private coaching with those other sports. Now, a lot of those things are happening as well.
Well, Mark, since you disagree, and I like playing devil's advocate.
No, it's fine.
Since you disagree, what sport is there where you want to decide to kind of flip that switch and go from like a casual like participant to I really want to see how good I can get at this? What sport is there where you can make that shift and it's not expensive? And it's like, oh yeah, sure. Here's all the resources, all the coaches, all the, you know what I'm saying, like the practice facility and like.
Long distance running.
That's a good answer.
That's very good.
You need shoes. You need
Cross country.
You might need to hire a coach or someone more experienced.
That's a good answer.
But if you really want to be resourceful, I mean, first of all, YouTube. But let's take YouTube off the table because that was a game changer in my opinion for
100%.
anything.
Yeah.
So you need to hire a coach part time, maybe a dietitian, maybe a personal trainer just for leg workouts and leg exercises.
And you can run to the competitions.
Yeah, exactly. But long distance.
But
running,
no, seriously, is it a big? I don't know anything about running. Is there big like competitions and like meets and stuff you got to travel to? Or
I mean, yeah, there are. I mean, I'm not a long distance runner, obviously, because I'm not that crazy.
and you eat a Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. But people that take marathons seriously, I have friends that are personal trainers, and they do that. They travel to Alabama. They travel to California, again, given no type of pandemic, and they do this thing seriously. They train all year for it, and it's relatively inexpensive.
Yeah, define relative. So if like Matt kind of laid out, okay,
Okay,
5-6K like in a year. So what are we talking?
Like a marathon's like $200 in or $100 or
So
something.
entry fee, training, some coaching on a non-regular basis,
Shoes
1,000, 1,500 maybe.
a year.
But my
to take it seriously, you
Yeah.
think?
But again, my pushback to that is your people are competing typically in a marathon for their personal best.
Okay, so you want a one-on-one competition.
Well,
kind of
I
thing.
mean, it's more of like, I mean, golf is a same thing. Like you're trying to more like personal best. You're trying to shoot your score, but that's very expensive. But a lot of people that enter marathons, they're not, I won't say a lot because I don't know that world,
Yep.
but some of them are happy just to finish.
Correct.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So yeah, they're training their body so they can, and again, they're trying to work on times, and I get all that.
Same kind of separation between like a hobbyist and somebody
Yeah,
who's like
I
trying
think
to be
that's
competitive.
Yeah, and again, my pushback to that, unless you're just that disciplined of an athlete, if you're trying to knock off 2 minutes of your time, you're going to have to spend some money to get there.
Okay, so is swimming off the table? Because that was also a thing I was gonna say.
I think swimming's probably pretty
It's gonna
expensive.
be pricey.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Pool time, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
And
not
coach
huge
and-
holes full of water all over the place.
Yeah. There's a pond. I'll just jump in there.
Local man arrested for swimming in mid-December. Then, to be honest, I don't have a counter argument to what you and Ian were saying.
I'm
because,
just wondering,
to get
like
to that
what,
level.
what is there to pursue? Where it's like, here's all the resources, the guidance, the equipment, the
Right.
training, like everything that's required to pursue it.
So not swimming, not long distance running, not cycling.
Definitely not. I guess it's really
Yeah,
you spend
No,
tons of
it's
money
like,
on it.
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
But I think on the tennis side though
Yeah.
too, I think to kind of circle back around, probably maybe like in the 80s, like there wasn't as many courts available. Sometimes you could only go maybe to a private club. There wasn't park districts.
Yep.
There wasn't this. So there was probably a little bit of an exclusivity. It was probably the same as golf though too. I mean, a round of golf is X amount. Man, I got to save up for that. Where baseball, there's baseball fields everywhere. Hey,
Yep.
let's go play. But I don't know when that changed. I don't know if it was the 80s or the 90s. I have no idea. But now it just seems like you have a lot of free resources for these things. Now, that doesn't mean you can play it all year round based on where you are.
Yeah.
But, and again, the competition part, I think that no matter if you want to get good at anything, it's going to cost you money. I mean, that's just to me
Whatever
the bottom
the
line.
activity is.
Exactly. Now, it might not cost as much as, like, if I wanted to get really good at bowling,
Backgammon.
yeah, I think my bowling cost would be a lot lower. But
Chess?
Is chess really expensive?
No, it's inexpensive
Oh, there you go.
if you think.
Poker. Well, that could be really
yeah.
expensive.
Exactly. When you keep losing all your money.
Well, it's either you're out of chips or you're out of clothes.
But those aren't really sport. I like if we're gonna go apples to apples, like
Yeah.
it has to be like an athletic endeavor. I think. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of I feel like we almost kind of talked ourselves back around to status.
So there are extremes, and on
and,
both ends.
yeah.
And it really matters if you're a hobbyist or
Yeah.
you're gonna pursue it like intensely.
But I think, at least from my personal experience, if I meet someone that's like really, really good at golf, I think they're a step above someone that's like probably really, really good at tennis. I think golf
In terms
is
of
still-
investment,
in terms of status, I would say, for investment for both time
like,
and money.
social status, like
social status.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but tennis is in my
On
opinion,
on
up
average.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, tennis is definitely up there. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't argue
Yeah.
No.
against that.
Yeah, definitely.
But at least if you just want to play and have fun, you can go do that.
Yeah.
So that's good. It's
Yeah.
like there's pros and cons, and I think that's the case for just about any sport, unless it's equestrian, as you said. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
You got to own a horse.
yeah,
Polo.
There you
Water
go.
polo?
No,
yeah,
polo.
Oh,
yeah,
polo.
Like
yeah,
Ralph Lauren polo. Like
yeah,
that's a sport.
expensive.
Yeah. Just like,
Yeah, if you say you're like a really good polo player, then
uh,
where's your Bentley?
fencing.
Yeah.
too.
Is that expensive?
Yeah,
I've
I
always
think
wanted to do
so.
fencing.
I would. Yeah. We got the space. Let's buy some gear.
Welcome to Essential Fencing.
That's the next channel. All right. Well, any final thoughts? I feel like we kind of covered every. Is there anything we haven't covered that
Nah,
you guys think is important?
No, I mean we compared it based on our backgrounds. We compared
Yeah.
it to other sports, and amateur, pro, or anywhere in between.
Yeah.
This is one where I'm really curious to see what the audience feedback is going to be like, because we all have our own unique backgrounds and experiences, and people come from different financial positions and have totally different outlooks on what all this stuff means. So I'm really curious to see what the audience has to say.
Definitely. And some people are probably gonna have, like you said too, like I think what sticks with people is the negative experience when somebody is spending lots
more
of
than
money,
you can.
more than you can, and they don't care.
Yeah,
and they don't care about it. It's just like, oh man, if I only, right? It's kind of if I had that. But I mean, that goes back to the age-old question, right? Everybody had the athlete in their school that didn't care about anything. He or she was good at everything, and they never applied themselves. Or with their schooling in particular, like we can always go down that rabbit hole, and it's just like, oh, if I just had half of that, I would devote all my time and things like that. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this some of the comments on this.
Yeah, I am too.
Well, thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys. If you're enjoying the episodes, make sure to subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts app, Spotify, wherever. Just go to search for Shankcast on the internet. You know how to use this stuff.
You're already here by now. If you figure out how to get on here, you know how to.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next episode.